The black car door opened slowly. Mr. Harris stood still, confused. The CEO of the airline, Mr. Grant, stood beside him like an assistant, not a boss. The airport staff watched silently. No one laughed now. No one turned away. The war hero they had all ignored was now the most respected man at the airport. Mr. Grant led Mr. Harris to the VIP lounge. It was quiet, clean, and full of soft lights. Everything smelled expensive. But Mr. Harris didn't care about that. He looked uncomfortable, in the big leather chair. "I don't need this," he said. "I know, sir," Mr. Grant replied, "but you deserve it." A young staff member brought him tea and small sandwiches. She had tears in her eyes. "Thank you for what you did," she whispered. Mr. Harris gave a polite smile. "You're welcome." But inside, he felt strange. Why now? Why did they care today? All he had done was sit in his seat and fly home. Mr. Grant sat across from him. "I read about you years ago," he said. "You saved 12 men in the Echo Valley War, didn't you?" Mr. Harris nodded slowly. 13, if you count the one I carried for miles. And you never gave any interviews. "No," Mr. Harris said. "I didn't fight for fame. I fought to keep my brothers alive." Mr. Grant looked at the medal on his chest. "May I ask?" "What's the story behind that medal?" Mr. Harris looked down at it. His fingers touched the edge gently. He took a deep breath. It was cold that day. Freezing. We were trapped. Enemy fire from all sides. No food, no water. We had orders to hold our ground, but men were dying. He looked out the window, eyes far away now. "I saw my captain get hit. My best friend lost his leg. I knew we wouldn't survive if we just waited. So I crawled through the mud, slipped behind enemy lines. I took out their radio post, risked my life to send out a signal." He paused. "Reinforcements came. We made it out. Barely." Mr. Grant was quiet. He had heard stories before, but this one, it felt different. Real. "And that medal?" he asked. Mr. Harris looked at it again. "They gave me this, quietly. No parade, no news, just a medal and a handshake. Then, silence." "Why?" Mr. Grant asked. Mr. Harris sighed. "Because I came home after the war when no one wanted to remember it." At that moment, the door opened. A tall man in uniform walked in. His chest was full of medals, too. "Permission to speak, sir," he said, saluting Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris looked up. "I haven't been saluted in years. My name is Major Daniels. I heard you were here. I had to come." Mr. Harris nodded. "You inspired my father," Major Daniels said. "He named me after your captain." Mr. Harris smiled. "He was a good man." Mr. Grant looked surprised. "You're known among soldiers?" Major Daniels nodded. "To us, he's a legend, but sadly, legends often go unnoticed by the public." Mr. Harris stood up slowly. "Never needed attention," he said. "But I did hope that people would still remember what it cost." Back in the airport, something unexpected was happening. The photo of Mr. Harris, the one posted from the plane, had gone viral. People were sharing it. News channels picked it up. Social media was full of one question: who is the old man with the quiet medal? Veterans around the world commented. Soldiers saluted in videos. People began using the hashtag silent. Hero at the VIP lounge, Mr. Grant's phone buzzed again. He showed Mr. Harris the screen. "You've touched the world, sir." Mr. Harris looked at it. His eyes stayed on one message. "I served with this man. He saved my life. I owe him everything." Sergeant Reuben Blake. Mr. Harris's lips parted. "Reuben, he's alive?" Mr. Grant smiled. "Would you like to see him?" They arranged a call, a video call. The screen lit up. An old man appeared, thinner, with gray eyes but smiling wide. "Tom," he said. Mr. Harris's eyes watered. "Reuben." "I thought you were gone," Reuben said, voice shaking. "I'm still here," Harris said. "Just quiet." "I told my grandson about you," Reuben replied. "He thought I was making it up. Not anymore." They both laughed, a soft, broken laugh, the kind that only war brothers could share. After the call, Mr. Harris sat back in his chair. He wiped his eyes. "I think I've been silent too long," he said. Mr. Grant leaned forward. "Then let us help you tell your story." As Mr. Harris left the lounge, a small crowd had gathered outside. Airport workers, passengers, soldiers, children. They didn't cheer. They didn't yell. They stood quietly, respectfully. One little boy stepped forward and saluted. Mr. Harris gave a small salute back. The boy smiled. "My dad says you're a real hero." Mr. Harris bent down slightly. "Tell your dad I'm just a man who didn't give up." The news had already reached the airline's board. They issued a public apology. They promised new training for staff on how to treat veterans and elderly passengers with dignity. Mr. Grant sent a personal message. To every airline employee, never ignore the quiet ones. They may carry the weight of the world. But the story wasn't over. Mr. Harris had one request. "I want to go back. One last time," he said. "Go back where?" Mr. Grant asked. Mr. Harris looked into the distance. "To the place it all happened, where I left pieces of myself. I want to say goodbye." The jet touched down on a quiet airstrip in a remote country. No reporters, no crowd, just wind, dust, and memories. Mr. Harris stepped out slowly, wearing his old jacket, the same one from the war, the same one with the medal. His eyes scanned the land ahead. Dry hills, silent trees, a small graveyard not far away. It had been over 50 years, but the place still smelled the same, like earth, smoke, and silence. Behind him walked Mr. Grant, the airline CEO, and Major Daniels, the soldier who had tracked him down. They didn't say much. They knew this wasn't their moment. A local guide led them along the old path, a narrow trail once used by soldiers during the Echo Valley War. "Are you sure you want to do this, sir?" Major Daniels asked. Mr. Harris nodded. "I have to." As they walked, Mr. Harris pointed to a rock. "There," he said softly. "That's where I dragged Reuben after he got hit." They kept walking. He stopped again, looking at a rusted metal post sticking out of the ground. "That's the radio tower I destroyed. Cost me 3 fingers on my left hand." He held up his hand. The fingers were still there, but stiff and twisted. They never healed right. They finally reached a clearing. The grass was short. The land was still. A small memorial stone stood in the center. It read, "To those who never returned, Echo Valley, 1969. Mr. Harris removed his cap. He dropped to one knee. His voice cracked. "Captain Lewis, I made it back." He placed a small item by the stone. It was a piece of a dog tag, rusted, burned. He had carried it all these years. Mr. Grant and Major Daniels stood back. They saw a man not crying, but remembering, a man who had never stopped carrying the weight of others. After a few minutes, Mr. Harris sat down on the ground. He looked out at the valley. "I was 24 when I came here," he said. "I thought I was invincible. I wasn't." He picked up a small stone and held it. "This place took everything. My brothers, my peace, my youth." Mr. Grant sat beside him. "You gave a lot, sir, but you gave the world peace." Mr. Harris looked at him. "No, I gave them a story they forgot, until now," Mr. Grant said. They returned to the village that night. Locals had heard about the old war hero visiting. Children lined up to shake Mr. Harris's hand. He smiled gently, speaking softly. One child held up a small paper flag and said, "Thank you." Mr. Harris paused, then gave the child his medal. "No." "Sir," Major Daniels said, "that's your medal." Mr. Harris shook his head. "I've worn it long enough. It's time someone else carries it forward." The child clutched it tightly, eyes wide. The next day, the local mayor held a small ceremony. No media, no reporters, just villagers, soldiers, and a few candles. Mr. Harris was given a plaque that read, "To the one who returned and remembered." He said only one sentence when they asked him to speak. "Never forget the quiet ones. They often scream the loudest inside." As they prepared to return home, Mr. Grant looked at Mr. Harris. "You've changed me, sir." Mr. Harris smiled. "Good, because I'm not finished yet." On the flight back, Mr. Harris stared out the window again, this time not lost in thought, but full of purpose. Major Daniels sat beside him. "What now, sir?" he asked. Mr. Harris looked at him. "We tell the truth, about what war costs, about how we treat those who come back." When they landed, they were greeted by a small team of reporters, not because Mr. Harris wanted it, but because people had begun to ask questions. Who is this man? Why did the CEO fly him to a war zone? What happened on that plane weeks ago? Mr. Grant stood at the microphones. "This man was disrespected by my company, but that mistake showed us something deeper." He turned to Harris. "He's not just a veteran, he's a voice, and we must all listen." News channels started calling Mr. Harris the silent hero. He didn't like the name, but he accepted it, because the world was finally listening. Soon, after, a large public event was planned, not by the airline, but by veterans across the country, a national memorial speech, and they wanted Mr. Harris to be the main speaker. At first, he refused. "I'm no speaker," he said. "I'm just an old soldier." But when he looked at the thousands of messages sent to him, "You made my son proud to wear his uniform. Because of you, I hugged my father for the first time. You reminded me why silence sometimes hides strength." He changed his mind. But what would he say? What could a man like him say that the world would truly hear? He sat by his window that night, holding a blank sheet of paper. Then slowly, he began to write. The first line read, "They gave me a medal, but forgot my name. I'm here to remind them who I am." The airport was busy. People were rushing. Bags rolled on the floor. Children cried. Announcements filled the air. It was a normal day for everyone, except one man. He was an old man. His back was straight, but his steps were slow. He wore an old, faded military jacket. On his chest was a single medal, shining quietly. His shoes were worn. His face was calm, but his eyes looked tired. Very tired. His name was Mr. Harris, but nobody knew that. To the airline staff, he was just another passenger, a silent one. He reached the check-in desk and showed his ticket. The young woman at the counter didn't smile. "Window seat 28A, she said coldly, and handed him his boarding pass. Mr. Harris gave a small nod. "Thank you," he said softly. She didn't reply. She was already looking at the next person as he walked to the gate. Some people looked at him, not with respect, but with confusion. A boy whispered to his father, "Why is that man dressed like that?" His father replied, "Don't stare, son." The old man said nothing. He just walked. Inside the plane, passengers were already seated. A flight attendant stood at the door. "Good afternoon," she said to a young man in front of him, smiling brightly. Then she saw Mr. Harris. Her smile faded. "Sir, do you have the right seat number?" she asked. "Yes," he replied. 28A, she checked. She looked annoyed. "This way," she said quickly, not meeting his eyes. He walked down the aisle slowly. His seat was at the back of the plane. A man in the aisle stared at his medal and gave a little smirk. "What's he playing at?" he whispered to his wife. She giggled. Mr. Harris reached his seat. A young mother with a small girl sat next to him. The little girl looked at him with wide eyes. "Are you a soldier?" she asked with excitement. Her mother pulled her back. "Don't bother the man," she said. Mr. Harris smiled. "I was, a long time ago," the girl smiled back. "Did you fight in a war?" Her mother turned to him. "Sorry, she's very curious." "It's okay," he replied kindly. "Yes, I did." But that was all he said. As the plane filled up, a well-dressed man sat in first class. He wore a black suit and had silver hair. He held a tablet and looked busy. But when Mr. Harris passed by, something changed. The man looked up and stared at him. He recognized that face. He remembered that medal. He whispered to the flight attendant nearby, "Who is that man in 28A?" The attendant looked confused. "Just some old guy." "No," the man said slowly. "That's not just anyone." Back in economy, the flight attendants were serving water. One of them reached Mr. Harris's row. She looked at him and raised an eyebrow. "No food for you, sir," she said. "Your ticket is basic fare." Mr. Harris nodded. "That's fine." But the little girl next to him frowned. "That's not fair," she said. "He's a soldier." Her mother hushed her again. "Don't talk too much. Mr. Harris just smiled gently. The man in first class pressed a button. The attendant came. "Bring me the passenger list," he said. "Sir?" she asked. "Now." He looked at the list. There it was. Harris, Thomas, seat 28A. He felt a chill. "I know that name," he whispered. He picked up his phone and sent a message. "We have a problem. A war hero is sitting in the back of our plane, and we're treating him like trash." The message went straight to the CEO of the airline. While the plane flew high above the clouds, the CEO sat in his office drinking coffee. His phone buzzed. He looked at the message. His hands froze. Thomas Harris? He remembered the name. He had once read about him, a soldier who saved his whole unit in a deadly battle. He had gone missing for years and returned quietly. No award ceremony. No grand welcome, just silence. And now, he was on their plane, disrespected. The CEO stood up fast. "Get me that flight on screen, now!" he shouted to his assistant. Back in the sky, Mr. Harris looked out the window. The clouds looked soft, peaceful. He held the medal in his hand. He didn't wear it for show. He wore it because it was the only thing left from his past, a past full of pain and sacrifice. He remembered the battlefield, the smoke, the cries, the friends he lost. He had done his duty. He had returned. But the world had moved on. No one cared. He didn't need a thank you, but respect. That was not too much to ask. The little girl leaned toward him again. "Why are you sad?" she asked softly. Mr. Harris looked at her. "I'm not sad," he said gently. "Just remembering." "Remembering what?" He smiled a little. "People I miss." The flight attendant returned. This time her face was pale. "Sir," she said, "I'm sorry about earlier." Mr. Harris looked at her confused. "It's okay," he said. She handed him a hot meal tray. "This is from first class. Please accept it." He looked surprised. "Why?" Before she could answer, the man in the black suit appeared beside them. He was no longer sitting. He was standing next to Mr. Harris's row. In economy. People looked around. The man spoke in a low voice. "Sir, my name is Richard Cole. I work with the CEO of this airline. We're deeply sorry." Mr. Harris blinked. "Sorry for what?" Richard knelt beside him. "For not recognizing who you are. For treating you without the respect you deserve." Mr. Harris looked at him surprised. "How do you know who I am?" "I served too," Richard said. "Not like you, but I know your story." The cabin was silent. Even the people who had laughed earlier now looked down. Richard continued, "Please, the CEO wishes to speak with you after the flight. Can we arrange that?" Mr. Harris said nothing for a moment. Then he gave a small nod. Up in the front, the flight continued. But something had changed. People were whispering, looking, wondering. Who was this silent man with the medal? And why? Did everyone suddenly care? The plane flew quietly through the sky. The engines hummed. But inside, the mood had changed. Passengers who once laughed now sat still. Some stole glances at the old man in the back row, the man with the medal. Mr. Harris sat quietly, just like before. He didn't ask for attention. He didn't want it. But now, he had it. In first class, Richard Cole, the airline executive, sat back in his seat, deep in thought. He looked at his phone again. The CEO had replied, "Don't let him leave. I'm coming." Richard turned pale. The CEO, Mr. Grant, never left his office for anyone. But today, he was coming to the airport himself. Richard pressed the button for the flight attendant. "Bring me another passenger list. Full details this time." "Yes, sir." He looked at Mr. Harris's name again. Thomas A. Harris, age 78, economy, class, military ID used for booking. No one at the airline noticed the ID before. No one cared, until now. At the back, a man from the middle rows slowly walked toward the restroom. But he stopped near Mr. Harris. "Sir," he said softly, "were you in the Army?" Mr. Harris looked up, surprised. "Yes," he replied. The man nodded. "My father was too. He died in the war. Thank you for your service." Mr. Harris nodded, but his eyes looked far away. "Many of us never came back. I just did what I had to do." The man walked away, silent. A few seats behind, another passenger opened her phone. She had been listening. She typed into a search bar, "Thomas Harris, war hero." A photo popped up, black and white. Mr. Harris was young in the picture, standing in a battlefield, carrying another soldier. Her eyes widened. "It's him." Word spread quietly, row by row, seat by seat. Some whispered. Some searched online. Some just watched. The little girl next to Mr. Harris smiled. "I knew you were special." Her mother looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know." Mr. Harris gave her a kind smile. "No need to be sorry. Most people don't." In the cockpit, the captain received a message from air traffic control. It was strange. "When you land, keep the plane on standby. A VIP is arriving." "Who?" the co-pilot asked. The captain checked again. He raised his eyebrows. "The CEO?" Back on the ground, Mr. Grant, the CEO, was racing through the airport. His driver tried to speak. "Sir, should I inform the press?" "No," Mr. Grant snapped. "Not a word to the media. This is not for news. This is personal." He had once read about Thomas Harris in a military magazine. The man had saved 12 soldiers under fire. He had been shot 3 times but kept fighting. No medal ceremony, no interviews. He had disappeared after the war, until now. Back in the air, Mr. Harris stared out the window again. He held his medal tightly in his hand. He didn't want attention, but the way he had been treated, pushed aside, ignored, that hurt more than bullets ever could. He had worn this jacket because it was all he had left, a reminder of his brothers in arms. Men who never got a second chance at life. And yet here he was, being treated like he didn't matter. The flight attendant returned again. This time, she brought a fresh cup of tea. "I'm sorry for earlier, sir," she said. Mr. Harris nodded. "You're just doing your job." "But we were wrong," she whispered. "We should have seen you." He said nothing, but something in his eyes softened. The man across the aisle suddenly stood. He cleared his throat. "I think we should say something," he said loudly. The cabin turned to him. "We have a hero here, and we treated him like nothing. That's not right." Some nodded. Others looked away in shame. A young woman near the back raised her phone. "Excuse me, sir." she said gently to Mr. Harris. "May I take a picture to share your story?" Mr. Harris paused. "I didn't come here for that." "I know," she replied, "but the world should know who you are." He thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. The picture was taken, not posed, not forced. Just Mr. Harris sitting by the window, medal in hand, eyes full of history. She posted it online with the words, "He sat alone, quiet, forgotten, but today we remember." War hero. "I respect veterans." Within minutes, the post began to spread. In a world full of noise, this small moment touched hearts. The captain's voice came on the speaker. The envelope was old, yellow with age, the corners curled. The paper was thin, like it might tear with a breath. Mr. Harris sat at his kitchen table, holding it gently. His hands, now shaky with age, had once held rifles, carried friends, and now this. The return address caught his eye. Lewis, Septi Echo Unit 3. His breath hitched. Captain Lewis, his captain, his friend, his brother in war. He had died in Echo Valley, but this letter had never reached him. Postmarked 3 days before. The captain's death. It had sat forgotten, in a government box, until someone found it during a memorial archive search. Now it was here, and Harris could barely bring himself to open it. He stared at it for a full hour. The medal on the table beside him, the photo of his unit looking back at him. Finally, he opened it, slowly, carefully, and he began to read. "Tom, if you're reading this, then either I made it or I didn't. But you did, and that's what matters." Tears formed instantly in his eyes, the voice of his captain, echoing across time. "I know you always blame yourself, for Reuben, for Alan, for me. But let me say this clearly. It was never your fault." His hands trembled. He paused, breathed, then continued. "If I don't make it out of Echo Valley, you must go home. Not just to live, but to speak. You've always been the quiet one, Tom. But your silence hides strength." Mr. Harris leaned back in his chair. The words felt like they reached into his soul. "When the world forgets us, you remind them. Tell our stories. Make them see. And one more thing, Tom. Find my sister. Tell her I kept the promise, that I never left my men behind." Mr. Harris set the letter down. He wiped his face with both hands. Captain Lewis had written it with such calm, as if he knew. Mr. Harris had never met Lewis's sister. He didn't even know her name. But now, more than 50 years later, he had a new mission. He picked up the phone and called Major Daniels. "Major, I need your help." Within days, a search began. Records were old, many missing. But Daniels worked fast, using military databases and public records. After 2 days, he called Mr. Harris back. "We found her," he said. "Her name is Margaret Lewis, lives in Montana. She's 78. Mr. Harris felt a strange pull in his chest. He had survived gunfire, ambushes, and silence, but now he felt nervous. "Does she know about the letter?" Harris asked. "No," Daniels said. "But she agreed to meet you." 3 days later, Mr. Harris stood outside a small wooden house in the Montana hills. It was quiet, peaceful. A small wind chime danced in the breeze. He knocked, and the door opened. Margaret Lewis stood there, gray hair, kind eyes. She looked at him carefully. "You're Tom?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I've waited 50 years for someone to tell me what happened to my brother." They sat inside beside an old fireplace. Mr. Harris handed her the letter. She read it slowly, covering her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. He always wrote to me," she said. "But this is different." She looked up. "Thank you for bringing it." Mr. Harris hesitated. There's one more thing. He reached into his coat and pulled out a second envelope. This one was from him. I never knew what to say, he told her. So I never wrote. But now, I have words. She took the letter gently and nodded. Later, she showed him a photo album, old black and white pictures. Captain Lewis as a boy, in school, with his first uniform. Charlie was always brave, she smiled. But he was also gentle. Before leaving, Mr. Harris asked to visit the family grave. They drove to a quiet cemetery. He stood before a small headstone. Captain, Charles Lewis, 1943-1969. Mr. Harris saluted, then whispered, I kept your promise, Captain. Back at home, things had changed. The news of the lost letter spread fast. Social media exploded with posts about the message from the past. Veterans across the country started sharing their own lost letters, ones they had written but never sent. National campaign began. Letters from the Silence, a project to collect and publish letters from veterans across wars, time, and countries. Mr. Harris was asked to be the honorary founder. He agreed, but asked for one thing. Every letter must be read out loud by someone who never went to war. At the campaign launch, young students read the words of soldiers long gone. Their voices trembled, but they spoke with heart. The first letter read was from Captain Lewis, and it ended with the same line Mr. Harris had once read in silence. When the world forgets us, you remind them. Mr. Harris stood quietly in the back. He didn't need the spotlight. He had done his duty. The sun was warm over the town square. A gentle breeze moved through the trees, and the smell of fresh flowers filled the air. Children ran across the grass. Families sat on benches. Veterans, young and old, stood side by side. At the center of it all was Mr. Harris. In his hands, he held a small box, the same box that had once held the medal the airline lost. But today, it was not just a medal, it was a symbol of everything that had changed. The mayor stepped up to the podium. He looked around at the crowd, then nodded toward Mr. Harris. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, today we honor not just one man, but every man and woman who was once forgotten. He paused. And today, because of one small act, one lost medal, the world finally stopped and listened. Mr. Harris stepped forward. He was older now, slower, but his voice was steady. 50 years ago, he began, I came home to silence. No one welcomed us. No one said thank you. Many of us buried our memories deep inside. He held up the medal. This was never about the medal itself. It's just metal. What matters is what it represents. He looked at the crowd, his eyes wet. It represents voices that were never heard, and now finally are. The crowd clapped gently, but then something unexpected happened. A young woman walked toward the stage. She wore a modern military uniform. Sharp, proud, she saluted. Mr. Harris, sir, she said, on behalf of the United States Armed Forces, we'd like to award you one more thing. She handed him a folder. Inside it was a document, a presidential letter of recognition awarding Mr. Thomas Harris the Medal of Honor, delayed but never denied. The crowd gasped. Mr. Harris stared at the paper, speechless. He had never asked for this, never expected it. But before he could speak, a little voice called out from the front row. Grandpa! Grandpa! Look what I made! It was his grandson. He held up a crayon drawing. It showed Mr. Harris standing tall, with little stars around him. At the top, the boy had written in big letters, My Hero. Mr. Harris knelt down slowly. He took the drawing with shaking hands and hugged the boy. No medal, no applause. Meant more than that moment. Later that evening, he sat alone on his porch. The medal sat on the table beside him, shining softly in the light. His daughter brought him tea. Are you okay, Dad? She asked. He nodded. I just never thought The world would change like this. I thought it had forgotten us forever. She smiled. You helped it remember. Suddenly, a car pulled into the driveway. It was Mr. Grant, the airline CEO. He stepped out holding a small frame. I thought you might want this, he said. It was a photo, taken during the honor flight. Mr. Harris was smiling, surrounded by veterans, family, and airline staff. At the bottom it read, "From disrespect to honor, one man changed a nation." Mr. Grant sat beside him. I used to think my job was just business, he said. Sell tickets, keep planes moving. He looked at Mr. Harris. But now, I see. It's more than that. It's about people, about stories, about memory. Mr. Harris smiled. And about second chances. Mr. Grant nodded. Thanks to you, we've started a new tradition. He handed Mr. Harris a small booklet. Airline Policy Change, Medal Verification Program, dedicated to the late Captain Charles Lewis and all silent heroes. Mr. Harris turned the pages. Each new passenger with a military background would now be personally honored, seated with care, and have their service recognized before every flight. Tears welled in his eyes, not because he needed honor, but because so many others now would never be forgotten. As the stars came out, Mr. Harris stood up and looked at the sky. He held the medal in his hand. Then, slowly, he placed it on a wooden shelf beside two others, one from battle, one from memory. But the most important thing sat beside them, a crayon drawing that said, "My hero." That night, Mr. Harris didn't dream of war. He dreamed of peace, of boys who came home, of a country that finally listened. And far above, in the silent stars, it was almost like the voices of Captain Lewis, Reuben, and all the others whispered, "Together. We are home now, brother, and the world remembers us because of you."